This is NBC 16 News at 5:30.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Mazer. A new wildfire has started about 7 miles west of Drain on Highway 38 in Douglas County. DFPA says the Highway 38 fire is about 3 acres so far. ODOT says a tree fell onto nearby power lines and started the fire. DFPA says they are using 3 helicopters, ground crews, and help from local fire departments. Crews are working to create fire lines and install hose lays around the fire. Highway 38 is closed in both directions. We will continue to track this fire and bring you the latest updates right here on NBC 16 News and NBC16.com. Now, of course, with high temperatures and dry conditions, most ODF land in western and southern Oregon is now in high fire danger. Our Kelsey Christensen is live in the studio tonight with what you need to know. Kelsey.
Well, Jacqueline, Douglas County has seen an average of 1 wildfire every day over the last week or so. They've remained fairly small because crews have been on top of them. But the biggest thing to note tonight is that they've been started by people. Firefighters in Douglas County have been fighting a string of wildfires over the last few weeks with hot and dry conditions.
So we've had a couple days with multiple fires, but we've been staying very busy with all the different fires we've seen, and the hot and dry weather is making things harder to control. Kyle Reed with the Douglas Forest Protective Association says luckily the fires have remained small, burning a total of about 150 acres. But the conditions aren't the only worry for firefighters. Another is people. So all the fires that we've seen so far have been human-caused fires. We haven't had any lightning within our district. Reed says the fires have sparked from anything from a cigarette to a deliberate start. A Sutherland man was arrested this week for allegedly starting 6 fires in the McComas Creek area near Glide, about an acre in size. It's something that could have gone definitely a lot worse than what it did. We don't need large fires on the landscape any year, but especially this year with everything going on. Fire danger is also high throughout western Oregon.
Hot weather and lack of rain.
Marcus Kaufman with the Oregon Department of Forestry says conditions are expected to remain dry over the next 7 to 8 weeks.
We are currently sitting at 56% below normal of moisture and rainfall. So the vegetation is already dry. It's going to continue to dry out. Our area is in an extreme drought. Kaufman calls it a recipe for a big fire. So it's just time for people to raise their fire awareness and be thinking about their surroundings and the people around them.
An important note tonight, certain restrictions can vary by district. That's ODF, so it's best to check their website for the latest updates. You can find that on our webpage. Jacqueline?
All right, thank you, Kelsey. Well, back to the man Kelsey mentioned who is accused of starting a wildfire near Glide. The Douglas County Sheriff's Office says Jedediah Fulton admitted to starting the flames when he was found Tuesday night. Firefighters originally encountered him with a machete, and Fulton allegedly wanted firefighters to give him a ride or else he would start more fires. Fulton faces multiple charges, including menacing and reckless burning. As we reported, the 6 fires were estimated to be around 1 acre. Fulton will be back in court August 5th. All right, let's take a first look at weather. Heather Melendez joins us now. Now, Heather, fire season, as we just heard through Kelsey's story, and as I just mentioned, it's really no joke. So we do need to take extra care with these warm, dry temperatures out there.
That is right, Jacqueline. And really right now we're experiencing a high pressure system, so not much moisture, very dry, and really not gusty either. So that's enough to concoct a fire. Thankfully, we don't have wind speeds, but we do have very low humidity levels. As we head into the afternoon, that sun rays really start to beat down. So we're in the low 20s here along the I-5. That marine layer keeping a little bit of moisture out along the coastline, which is great. Really dry and sunny, not a cloud in sight for today. Daytime highs are hitting and really sitting in the 90s for Roseburg and Eugene. Coos Bay 68, not much difference than yesterday, but plentiful clear skies for tonight. A warm night, and we're going to be even clearer tomorrow. We'll start to experience one last 90-degree day, but I'll let you know we'll have a big cool down headed our way in my full weather forecast. Jacqueline?
All right, thank you, Heather. Well, it's continuing coverage tonight. Mayor Ted Wheeler says federal officers are leaving Portland. This after Governor Kate Brown announced she reached an agreement with federal leaders. Governor Brown says starting tomorrow, federal officers will begin leaving downtown Portland, with the exception of officers who work inside the federal buildings. She says over the last 24 hours, she has come to an agreement with the vice president and other federal agency members to remove federal officers from Portland. The governor says Oregon State Police would come to Portland, clearing Lonesdale Square and helping to get the city to a point where a fence is no longer needed and tensions relaxed. The governor says her goal in all of this is to protect free speech and keep the peace. Portland police say a crowd gathered into the early morning hours. New video shows several fires. Police say protesters set inside the fence and where the elk statue used to stand. Around 1:30, video shows federal officers once again using tear gas to clear the area. Well, new data tonight from a Lane County report shows almost 10,000 people were living on the streets in 2019 alone. Now, local leaders are trying to find the best ways to help out during the coronavirus pandemic. City and county leaders met last night to break down the report and learn more about what it means for the homeless community. The Homeless by Name list is a monthly in-depth homeless report where employees track the coming and going of homeless using their services. It's an attempt to gain a deeper understanding of what services are needed. 4 shelter strategies are being discussed, but where will shelters be set up?
What are we going to do without Egan? You know, we saw the COVID camping problems, and microsites are great. How are we going to find them? It's the first problem of every single strategy we've had is where.
Another major concern is how do city and county leaders get money to build these sites? Eugene City Council approved $300,000 this week for homeless services, but that's only a fraction of what's needed to move forward.
It will take money. And so for me, one of the conversations is how and to what degree are we prepared to find up to $20 million a year, not every year forever, but at least for the acute period, $20 million a year to be able to deal with this.
The figures also show 80% of the homeless population is unsheltered in Lane County, compared to 35% nationwide. Johnson proposes 4 different strategies to help shelter people amidst the pandemic. They include expanding safe sleep villages, utilizing motels and hotels, upgrading shelters, and creating a congregate shelter, which gives clients their own space. Local leaders are now trying to find a way to get a strategy in place before the winter. Well, funding for the maintenance of small ports on the South Coast is one step closer to being available. NBC 16's Amanda Slee tells us how much funding could come and how ports intend to use it.
Safety is a priority when it comes to boating, but ports along the South Coast have been needing funding to maintain that safety.
When it's shoaled up and there's waves breaking across the channel, you know, it's pretty dangerous for smaller boats and pretty much any boat really to cross the channel. So when the Corps can come in and dredge deep in the channel, it makes a big difference.
The Port of Bandon, the Port of Umpqua, and the Port of Sayusla have all had their eyes on a federal funding bill. According to Congressman Peter DeFazio, the Water Resource Development Act of 2020 will fix the diversion of the harbor maintenance funds, bringing about $10 billion to those harbors.
Previously, the Corps wouldn't come into the harbor. They would only do the harbor entrance. This bill will allow dredging inside of the Port of Bandon, which will be very helpful to them. And Sayusla also has some shoaling issues right now too that are important.
The bill has passed in the House and will now move for a vote in the Senate. DeFazio says if it's signed into law, work would begin next year.
It's very exciting. It's been something that Oregon ports have been working hard with our representatives in Congress to make some progress on, and this is a big deal, and it's taken a lot of work to get there.
Griffin says it's understood that change doesn't happen overnight, but he says this is a good step forward for the city of the ports. Reporting in Coos County, I'm Amanda Slee.
All right, thanks for that report tonight, Amanda. Well, parks planners in Corvallis are putting the finishing touches on a new and expanded community center near the Oregon State campus. NBC 16's Tom Adams is here with a look at the progress at the place officials are calling C3. Tom?
Well, Jacqueline, C3 in this case stands for Corvallis Community Center. 10 months of construction has gone into this project, which is now just a few weeks away from opening to the public. Locals in Corvallis used to call the building the Chintimony Senior Center. It sits in the park with the same name. But along with a big expansion project of nearly $4.5 million comes a name change.
We have some older adults who don't want to be called a senior. They're active adults.
So this center is rebranded now as the Corvallis Community Center, with lots of new space inside.
The building was just too small for the popularity of our programs, to provide space for our various programs, and we didn't have parking here.
Jackie Rochford tells me that this lack of parking was actually hurting programs.
People were missing classes or not signing up because they knew they wouldn't be able to park.
That problem is solved now by more than 100 new parking spaces. Inside is much more space for fitness classes, conference rooms, a media center, and even a new coffee cafe. Good for
Opportunities for volunteering and opportunities to create a little entrepreneurial development in the center.
If you want to come outside and flex your pecs, check this out, a new part of the C3 complex, a self-guided adult fitness court. You can do all kinds of exercises here, body flexibility not included. Rochford adds the environment also gets a helping hand with this bioswale for flood control.
Walkways across the parking lot to the bioswale, places to sit and enjoy it.
And if the timetable holds up, officials say C3 should be open for use by the public before the end of August. And funding for the community center comes from system development charges in Corvallis, the fees that developers pay for growth, and also by a grant from the Chandler Trust.
All right, Tom, exciting stuff there. Thank you. Well, coming up on your only local news at 5:30, if you have travel plans this summer, Peace Health shares some tips to do so safely.